Oral questions. Chef de l'opposition officielle.
Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Premier to try and put himself in someone's shoes. Picture Michael. He's in his 60s. He lives in Quispam-Sis off the Vincent Road. He has worked his whole life. He dreams of retirement, but right now he's driving a forklift at a warehouse on the other side of St. John. He has 2 kids who are grown, 1 grandchild with a second coming soon. He thought he'd have his mortgage paid off by now. He used to pay his credit card bill in full each month. And he and his wife, Jenny, are sitting at their kitchen table with the radio on, looking at their mortgage statement, their power bill, and their credit card bill. They don't have enough money in the bank to pay all 3. He thinks about how he'd like to buy his grandson a great Christmas present. His ears perk up when he hears the Premier on the radio. He has voted for you 4 times, and he listens as you say, "I'm going to hold off on cost of living measures because I might need them for a political announcement down the road." What do you have to say today to Michael and Jenny about why you won't help them?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I love it how the Minister or the Leader of the Opposition quotes the CBC because we know that is an accurate source of information, and we've all learned that over the years. Mr. Speaker, there's probably 15 initiatives here on affordability measures that have already been put in place, and I know that in not reading the speech, the Leader of the Opposition didn't recognize any of them. So I understand that, Mr. Speaker. But the one thing she should recognize is that Michael's situation is totally and greatly enhanced by the federal policies, Mr. Speaker. And so she said yesterday that she would like to get rid of the Clean Fuels Tax, another program, Mr. Speaker, enforced by the federal government. So I would like to include something with this, Mr. Speaker. Let's put a unanimous motion together and get rid of the carbon tax too. So let's all agree, Mr. Speaker, that we want them both gone. And let's all stay here unanimously say we want them both gone. And Mr. Speaker, let's do it. Let's do it right now. Let's do it soon, because I agree with her. These carbon taxes, these taxes on fuel from federal policies is really hurting Michael at home. Thank you.
Chef de l'opposition.
Mr. Speaker, let me try a different one, although this one might be more of a stretch. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a young woman named Rebecca. She's the daughter of a single mom here in Fredericton. She just graduated from UNB, and she got a good entry-level job at Irving Oil, earning $50,000 a year. It took her all summer to find an apartment, but she finally got one in September at Carlton Towers for $1,300 a month, utilities not included. She is paying more than 40% of her income on rent. She's also trying to pay back her student loans. Elle doit acheter des meubles pour son appartement. Elle veut acheter des vêtements de travail professionnel. She'd like to come home and visit her mom, so she's looking at bus tickets and the price of a used car. Tout le monde dit qu'elle devrait épargner pour sa retraite. On lui dit qu'elle devrait épargner pour acheter une maison. She's 22 years old and she is stressed. She's doing her online banking and she sees a news story pop up with the headline, "Premier says he's holding off on inflation relief in case of election." What do you have to say to Rebecca about why you won't help her?
The Honourable Premier.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition feels the CBC is the headline to quote. So, Mr. Speaker, student loans, we know we took those to zero, Mr. Speaker, but I would refer to all of the issues in relation to what has happened in many areas on affordability. But, Mr. Speaker, there's a common theme here. There's a common theme that our situation has been directly created by federal policies. We shouldn't be in this situation in New Brunswick. We shouldn't be in this situation in Canada. But the federal policies have put us in this situation directly. So everything that student is experiencing for high costs, or Michael's experiencing from high costs, is directly related to the cost of transportation, the cost of everyday fuel services, the cost of heating, all generated unnecessarily by the federal government. So, Mr. Speaker, once again, I would say let's join the MPs, my colleague across the floor's MPs, who have gone to the federal government and said it is really hurting Atlantic Canada. We can all be united on one common theme. The cost of energy in this country is unaffordable, Mr. Speaker, and it's because of federal policies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just a point of clarification for the Premier that there are MLAs on this side of the House and not MPs. The Premier's Minister for Finance announced on September 27th that they had affordability measures that were coming in the next few weeks, that he had affordability measures. It's interesting to hear today describe himself to be so powerless to help New Brunswickers, as if he doesn't have tools that he could implement today and he's choosing not to use. So we have some ideas for you. How about you renew and expand the food and fuel benefit so that more middle-income New Brunswickers are eligible? Will you do that, Mr. Premier?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, just for clarification, in case you know, there are a few Liberal MPs in the province and in Atlantic Canada, and it's those MPs I'm referring to, Mr. Speaker, that are Liberal MPs, Mr. Speaker, that came out against the federal government and that the policies were unnecessarily impacting Atlantic Canada. Those are the MPs. I'm sure the Leader of the Opposition must be aware of them. So, Mr. Speaker, in this increase of what we're seeing across every sector, across what we're seeing in terms of home and trying to make ends meet, there is one common denominator. I'll repeat myself again. There are numerous areas that we have made affordability changes. And, Mr. Speaker, the throne speech outlines many others in relation to the low-income seniors benefit, others in relation to the home spousal benefit, Mr. Speaker, and the continued spike inspection benefit. Those are all in the throne speech, and there's other talks about the tax reduction. Unfortunately, the Leader of the Opposition missed them all. So wouldn't it have been interesting if the Leader of the Opposition had actually read the speech before she responded to the speech?
Chef de l'Opposition officielle.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Premier, New Brunswickers are looking for relief today. They're looking for action today on things that will make life more affordable for them. So I have another suggestion for you that is within your control that you could do tomorrow. Will you reform the property tax and assessment system in order to make life more affordable for New Brunswickers?
The Honourable Premier.
So, Mr. Speaker, we put and continued and enhanced the spike protection program because we are experiencing something that we've never seen in our province before, and the Leader of the Opposition missed that too. We're experiencing growth that is unprecedented. Yes, it brings challenges on housing, on homelessness, Mr. Speaker, on cost of building supplies and all that, but it doesn't need to be enhanced by policies that are so bad from the federal government that you just can't fix things that are wrong to begin with, Mr. Speaker. So while the Liberal opposition leader would continue to say, oh, just continue to put Band-Aids on it, let's look strategically at what needs to change on federal policies. Mr. Speaker, what we're forcing Canadians and Atlantic Canadians to do is pay a price, Mr. Speaker, a price for pollution that we don't make here. We are 1.5% of the world emissions. 1.5%. Do you think in the situation in China in coal plant production is going to change because of New Brunswick?
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. The Premier is talking about Band-Aid policies. He mentions spike protection. So we need spike protection because our property tax and assessment system does not have an ability to counteract the volatility of the market today. So the spike protection is a Band-Aid policy. Will the Premier consider what is within his control? He's focused on Ottawa. We're focused on New Brunswickers. We would like to see you. Will you take action to reform the property tax assessment system so that it benefits more New Brunswickers?
The Honourable Premier.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, it would have been a help if the Leader of the Opposition had read the throne speech. The Band-Aid policy she refers to in relation to the spike protection was first put in place in 2012 or 13, somewhere in that range. So it's been in place for a long time. What's been done right now is an enhancement of that policy, Mr. Speaker, and in fact, it helps to ease into the fact that properties are being worth more. So, Mr. Speaker, that is an ongoing 10-year program, not exactly Band-Aid. But, Mr. Speaker, the issue is her buddy in Ottawa, Prime Minister Trudeau. Prime Minister Trudeau, who doesn't care about the average citizen and the money that they have to spend to survive, who doesn't care about policies that make no sense, Mr. Speaker, but only lives in this psychological bubble or this theoretical bubble, Mr. Speaker. So let's get together, let's decide how we can really have an impact on citizens. We could reduce fuel costs here by 20–25%. Really, Mr. Speaker, we can have a huge impact, but we need to work together and we need to deal with Ottawa.
Thank you. Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank See, Mr. Speaker, I think it's interesting that he references the things that they're doing to help New Brunswickers in this speech from the throne and then mentions a policy that's been in place for 10 years as something this government should get credit for in terms of affordability measures. So I've got another suggestion for you, because we are focused on New Brunswickers and things that you could do today to make life more affordable. How about you fund school fees for parents and school supplies for teachers to make life more affordable?
The Honourable the Premier.
So I guess I'll slow down just a little bit on speaking, Mr. Speaker, because the MP thing got missed, and I had to clarify that. And now I have to go back to the spike protection, Mr. Speaker, because the spike protection has been enhanced to include, I think, all properties, Mr. Speaker. It only included residential before. So that was in the throne speech, but missed, Mr. Speaker. So I think, again, what we see is that the only imagination that the Leader of the Opposition have would be the typical Liberal approach. How many things can we just keep doing to make it look good to people as opposed to really make a difference? And, Mr. Speaker, you can sprinkle things everywhere, or you can fix the root problem, the root cause. And you can say, why are New Brunswickers, why are Atlantic Canadians, all of us in Atlantic Canada, including the Liberal Premier in Newfoundland, appeal to the federal government that these policies are negatively impacted? Mr. Speaker, the MPs, Liberal MPs, appeal to the federal government. And the only one that won't appeal to the federal government, Mr. Speaker, is sitting right across the hall from me, Mr. Speaker.
Chef de l'Opposition officielle.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. I think the root problem for New Brunswickers right now is sitting across the aisle. Because he has the power and the ability to make life more affordable for New Brunswickers tomorrow, and he is choosing not to. Continues to blame Ottawa when he has tools in his hands that could help New Brunswickers who are struggling. It's appalling to me that he can't answer for why he won't take action today to help people like Michael and Jenny and Rebecca. We've proposed to take the provincial tax off of electricity bills so that New Brunswickers could have some relief as things get colder. It was adopted in this House by everyone sitting here. Will you take the provincial tax off electricity to make life more affordable for New Brunswickers?
Minister of Natural Resources and Energy Development.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for an opportunity to stand and answer a question. Let's just talk about some mathematics. I get accused of being political all the time. I really try not to be, so I can't be accused of that. I can't be accused of that if we talk about empirical facts and math. And let's have a look at what that is. The removal of that off of our electricity amounts to the, approximately $120 million a year worth of reduced revenue, okay? Let's talk about the fact that this government worked to ensure that $2 billion worth of debt is paid down, which in and of itself is a good accomplishment. But what does that mean? That means that the province of New Brunswick is paying $90 million a year less interest just out into the air, okay? So what we've seen is a strategy to save $90 million but spend $120 million. That sounds like a reckless and irresponsible strategy. It sounds like a Brian Gallant policy. It sounds like a lack of experience. It sounds like a leader that's not ready for the job.